I'm Arya of Group 306. So the purpose of the scene I'm going to show you is to make the audience think about both autism and its effects on Christopher, and how lying can't get you anywhere, how it can ruin relationships. So the target audience is older teenagers to adults, because I figured that autism is kind of a touchy subject, and it wouldn't be ideal for young audiences. I'll be presenting my scene, talking about the atmosphere I want to create, and the general point I'm trying to show. I'll explain the 5 separate frames, why I divide the scene into those 5, and I'll try my best to explain exactly what I want to happen. The text I chose was when Christopher discovered his mom was alive. It starts from when Christopher is trying to find his book, and ends when his dad tries to explain himself and apologize. I call this scene the beginning, as it represents the end of Christopher's relationship with Ed, the beginning of his relationship with his mother, and the beginning of his journey to see his mother, and at the beginning of his independence. I chose the scene because it's a crucial part of the book, and it also induces many emotions, from understanding Christopher's point of view, and feeling angry at his father for not telling him, and for lying to him for about a year. The scene I'm creating is when Christopher discovers his mom is alive. I want to make an atmosphere of strong emotions, mostly of sadness and pity. I also want people to understand what it's like from a person like Christopher's point of view, and because that's, well, important. So I divided the scene into 5 separate frames. The first frame, called Detecting, is purposely boring for the audience, but it makes them think about Christopher's autism. We can see by the expression on his face that he isn't bored at all, and we realize it's because of his autism. The lighting is all natural, and because it's a rainy day outside, the lighting is gray, possibly foreshadowing what is going to happen in the near future. The camera angles will be close enough to his face that we can see his determined expression, but far enough so you would be able to see him actually looking for his book. The frame would be long, but to provoke boredom. Every time Christopher would look somewhere unsuccessfully, a giant nope would appear on the screen, written in white characters, alongside a sound, kind of like the ones in Inception, where it's like, aww. If I found it, I'll play it now. So the second frame, called The Discovery, is when Christopher finds his mother's letter. He finally goes to his dad's room, looking for his book, and after looking in his dad's shirt box, hidden under a transparent container, he finds it. A yeah with a question mark appears on the screen, again in white characters, along with a cheer and the sound of confetti popping.
Yeah!
But disappears when he looks under the book. We won't be able to see what he's looking at right away. The camera will be positioned high up and the angle will be straight down. That's when we find the envelope. So he thinks about it out loud and all the things it could be, trying to figure out how it was possible that his mother wrote this 14 months after he died. So while he's thinking, the dB, which is decibels, is turned way up so the audience can hear his heartbeat and his breathing. It shows Christopher's hypersensitivity. When his dad walks into his house, the moment is abruptly ended. He goes into his room to hide the envelope. The frame adds the atmosphere by adding an element of mystery.
So long, you made a nigga like the sun. So long.
The third frame, called Dinner, is when Christopher goes downstairs to eat dinner with his dad. He goes down, greets his father, and asks for his favorite fruit, which is baked beans and broccoli. So while his dad is cooking, he sits down on the couch and reads. And while while he reads, we can see his dad cook in the background. And while his dad cooks, a two-dimensional clock appears in the top right corner, and its arms move faster and faster, displaying the passing of time. And while his dad speeds up cooking because time is passing faster, Christopher just staring at his book, very well, it means concentrated. But I want to show how fast Christopher can get concentrated, and how it explains it's a trait of Christopher's autism, which is that he can do something without getting bored if there's an agenda or he knows what to do. It ends by Christopher going back up to his room. I ended it there because what happens next is completely unrelated to dinner.
You make it hard for a boy like that to go wrong.
The fourth frame is called The Letter, and you can probably guess what happens. Also, you've read the book, so you know exactly what happens. Christopher goes onto his bed and starts reading the letter addressed to him, written in his mother's handwriting. He starts reading it, and we hear it voiced out in his mother's voice. It ends with him thinking to himself that couldn't possibly be his mother, and he'd have to do more detecting to figure it out. The camera angle would be facing Christopher, so you can see him reading the letter, and you see the confusion and the expression on his face as he tries to figure it out. The frame ends when his dad walks in and asks him what he's doing.
I'm wishing I can make this mine.
So the last frame, called Mom, so I've skipped the part with the math problem just because it would be too much of a mess to put in a movie, or at least in a scene. So the last frame, called Mom, is when Christopher finally finds out his mother is alive. He explains why he couldn't do detecting for the past 5 days while sitting on the windowsill, but it's it would be like a flashback to what he was doing before. So the lighting is all natural. It's again raining that day, so it would be from lighting from outside. And when he reads the second letter, again in his mother's voice, the outside light illuminates him on his dad's bed, creating a sort of aura around him. By the second page of that letter, the camera switches to his point of view so we can see what's written on the letter. The mother's voice continues though. Finally, when he can't read anymore, when he's too sick to read, we can hear him talk about how his dad is alive, in his head, and how his mother is alive. So finally, when the voices get too much, the camera cuts to black. When he wakes up, the camera's facing down on him, so we can see him kind of curled up in a ball with vomit on the bed, and the camera zooms out, demonstrating a sort of disconnection from the world. And there's no sound, except for maybe his breathing. So his dad comes in, shouting his name, and he shakes Christopher, sits him up, and that's when and his face is completely blank, and that's when the downbeat music starts. So his dad walks back, trying to explain himself, tumbles and falls onto the floor. He's crying, his back against the wall, trying to explain himself, to apologize, but his voice is half muted because of the music that's in the background. And so then there's a pan on Christopher's face while he's staring at the wall, and then on his dad, who's crying, who doesn't know what to say or do. And then it cuts to black, and the music intensifies, and then the credits roll. So this is when the emotions really hit the audience, all this build up, and they probably weren't expecting such a tragic end, with Christopher and staring blank, just doesn't know what to think, and his dad trying to explain himself, trying to apologize, crying and stuff. Christopher finds out his mother was alive. The atmosphere created to get the audience to know some traits of autism, and how sometimes autistic people can't handle some things and need help. And it's also to make them have an emotional reaction, because that's cool. Anyways, thank you for listening, and I hope I've gotten you guys to be a little bit sad and a little bit understanding towards autistic people. You can contact me by my school email, arya@idzikmerkuda/mahayad.cpsa. Anytime if you have questions. Thank you again, and see you later.